All 5 candidates were invited to participate. Candidate Chad Aaron Spence was not able to be here tonight, and Jose Vicente sent us a text message indicating that due to a personal family situation, he was not able to be here tonight. We will be following the League of Women Voters forum for debates. Each candidate will have a 2-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement. They will then have a 1.5 minutes to respond to the first 3 questions and a 1 minute to answer the questions which follow. Some of these questions have been submitted by you, and the people from the PTA are bringing those questions up to us. Our timekeeper, Jan Little, will be keeping track of time, raising cards when there is 1 minute left, 30 seconds left, and then stop. And we mean stop. You do not get to have a finished paragraph. I might let you finish a word. Sitting with me is Caroline Emmons-Schramm. Caroline is a great resource for the League of Women Voters in vetting the questions that are coming from you and from that we have prepared in advance. We are asking questions about the issues, not personalities. Candidates drew cards to determine who gives the first opening statement and who will give the last closing statement. And we will now begin with our first opening statement by Heather Ashby.
All right, good evening. I am Heather Ashby. I am one of your candidates for District 2. To tell you a little bit about myself, I am a mom who moved to Orange County when my children were entering kindergarten. And we came to Orange County because of the quality schools that were offered. And we actually moved from Seminole County, which a lot of people like to think is better. So I raised my children here, and I work here. So I'm also a school counselor. I started my time in education as a classroom teacher in middle school. I taught American history. Then I moved to high school where I taught everything from US history, world history core classes to electives like sociology and psychology, and eventually kind of landed as the AP psychology teacher. It was during that time I decided I also had a passion for psychology and went back and earned a master's degree in mental health counseling and also marriage and family counseling. And I worked as a counselor in the afternoons and evenings while I still taught AP psychology in the daytime. I took that love and I combined them, and I became a certified school counselor. And that's what I've been doing over the last 10 years. I've worked at 2 Orange County high schools where I work with students and teachers and parents and administration and our deans and also district personnel. So I'm very well versed in what goes on in the schools and how we maneuver and try to represent our students. And I want to bring that to the school board. Thank you.
I'm sorry, one of the things that I meant to say, and I jumped over it, was I'm going to ask you all to hold your applause. I know they're all fabulous, but we're going to wait till the end so that we can get more questions in from all of you, and we will give everybody a big round of applause at the end. Thank you. But now we have Ms. Salmon.
Hello everyone, my name is Maria. I too am a product of OCPS from the student perspective. I was a student who sat in the classrooms of the OCPA hallways for every Monday through Friday for 12 years. And that is a long time as a student. It feels long. I'm running because this district has a lot of very right things going on with it, and some less so. You know, I was an immigrant Latina who got to this country when I was 7. I didn't speak any English in first grade. I was first generation. I was on free and reduced lunch all 12 years. And somehow, by senior year at Timber Creek High School, I was student body president of almost 4,000 students. I took 19 AP classes, in which I passed all but 3 with a 4 and a 5, and I headed off to one of the best public universities in the country, UC Berkeley. The how I got there isn't magic. My parents worked all the time, so they were not very involved in my schooling. They were great, incredible parents who just made sure I got there on time. But it was because of the amazing teachers that made a massive difference in my life. And it was OCPS at the time was only spending $7,000 per student And I was able to go to UC Berkeley and compete with kids who paid $50,000 a year for tuition and kick their butt. And I am proud of doing that because our school district has a lot of things going on with it really well. But I also know that our district has a lot of issues, right? In elementary school, I was put in classrooms where I had no chance of learning English until I tested out of it, even though my classes were 100% in Spanish the entire time. I would go hungry at school for many years because the free and reduced lunch forms they sent me home with were only in English, and I didn't want to stress my parents out with them. I had guidance counselors who told me I could never go to a good school and that I should focus on my Valencia application every single year that I told them about my dreams. And most importantly, the reason that I'm running is because when I came back and met with those amazing teachers, many of them had actually left the classroom or were planning to leave the classroom.
That's
so,
the
thank
end.
you.
Mr. Collins?
I'm George Collins, and I am having a blast with going to these concerts. We have been all across the state following the bands, and you know what's great about it? It's all outdoors, so it's been relatively safe. And our local high school, Timber Creek, as you may have heard, won the state contest. So this has been a great thing for our whole family. And to top it off was going to Washington, D.C. and having them play with the Army Band. So this is something I'd like to see continue with all the schools. But my main reason for running is to have the dreams of our kids, all their dreams. I want to see them reach them. And the way to do that is by helping them in all areas of their life. And of course, the one way to get there, as a former teacher myself of Valencia and at UCF, is to have the best teachers. And we need to support our teachers, and I do support our teachers, and I want to make sure that whatever it is that takes a collaborative effort with some of the business community or with the state, that we keep our teachers. And the careers is what I want our kids to enjoy. Not necessarily going to college, although I really like the partnership program we have with Valencia, where you can graduate as a dual graduate, but also I want to see our technical and career opportunities for our kids. We need more of that. You know, there are job openings out there that pay very well, but we don't have the students out there with the skill level to fill them. And the other reason I'm running is for safety. We're all concerned about the news that we've seen about the safety in the schools. And I'm following what's going on in the latest technology, and I look forward to protecting our kids, putting kids first.
Thank you. You will now each have a minute and a half to answer my first question. And we will start with Heather. And we'll go right down the table. And on the second question, Mr. Collins will get to go first. So we'll just keep passing it up and down. My first question is, why are you running for this elected position? What would you like your one most celebrated accomplishment to be looking back 10 years from now?
So I'm running for school board because right now we are in a critical state in public schools. We have over 400 vacancies in Orange County right now, and we have about a week and a half before school starts, which means there's going to be a lot of classrooms full of students on the first day of school that do not have a permanent teacher. And I can't tell you how devastating that is for students when those types of changes happen when school starts. So that is a huge issue, and my number one focus right now is to find solutions for that. We have to attract qualified teachers to Orange County, and we have to keep our qualified teachers that are here. And there are several different ways we're gonna do that, but that is the priority. So 10 years down the road, I wanna look back and say, you know what, we faced that challenge, we filled those classes, we educated our students, and we were able to accomplish things that other counties, weren't able to. And so with pay, with safety, with structure, we are going to overcome that. And that is, as I said, the #1 issue, but there are so many more. But right now, again, very concerning that we could have something like 6,000 students without a permanent teacher. And many of those openings are in interventions type classes, reading classes, where students really need that support. So that is what I am most concerned with.
Yes, I am looking forward to the future for our students. I want to support the strategic plan that OCPS has put in place. I support their vision and their mission, and I want to get behind that. It's a plan you may not be familiar with if you look on the OCPS website. It's a plan to 2025. And of course, we're looking further than that, but this plan gets into working with the community, working with our students, working with the business community. This is what I want to get behind. This is something that I have been very involved with the Chamber of Commerce, with the other community organizations. So it's a collaborative plan that involves getting involved with the parents, getting involved with the community. And that's what I want to look back at, that during this plan, it was a total success. And the one way we find out if it's a total success is the feedback from the students. We need to get their feedback constantly from the teachers, from the administration, and how our students are progressing. And most important, as I said before, not all our students are on the same career path, so it's important that we make sure that they are on that path to success, whether it be in college or whether it be in a technical or career field.
So I agree with Heather that the most pressing short-term issue is teacher shortage and retention. But I guess I'll double tap more on the second part of your question, which is on the long-term vision. And the long-term existential threat that our district faces, and it's not just unique to our district, but really across the country, is the federal government has given our district over $800 million to spend from here to 2024, some of it to 2025. And the district is in charge of making sure what we do with that money, right? A lot of that was relief money for what happened with COVID. It was making sure that we transitioned correctly in technology, that our teachers were retained, that some of the programs like ESC and ESL got extra attention, that we got school psychologists and mental health professionals in, right? A lot of that money is very necessary today, but it's gonna continue to be necessary long term. But that money's gonna go away. And so we were going to have a massive financial cliff looking at us as a district over the next couple of years. So everything that we as a district are getting better at with these federal funds, right? And the reality is that we can't only look at the state, because the revenue from the state is also decreasing, right? Like it used to be that we got 60 to 70% of our dollars from the lottery for education. Today's world, we're only getting 30% of lottery dollars are going to education. This is a massive drop. So on the federal level, we're going to have a big financial cliff coming down. So what happens when we do raise teacher salaries, when we do help folks? Sorry.
The next question is going to start with Mr. Collins. Name a strength, a weakness, an opportunity, and a threat for the school board. A strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat for the school board.
Well, I think the great opportunity is for the school board is to improve transparency. I've been so impressed with the technology that's out there, whether it's be Zoom or some of the other videos, to stay in touch with the community. And I think that we need to expand that ability to stay in touch. We can have community forums, not necessarily in person, although that's ideal, but we have a great opportunity to take use of technology. And I think that has been somewhat of a weakness for the school board, that we haven't made the best use of technology, the best use of communication, more meetings with the community, that they feel comfortable, that they feel that parents feel that they have an input on what happens in the classroom and what happens with their kids. It's very important that we overcome that weakness. And the other area?
Strength, opportunity, oops, weakness and threat.
And what?
Threat.
Stress?
Threat.
Oh, threat. Well, the biggest threat, of course, is that we have the safety considerations that we must overcome. They must feel absolutely comfortable about the threat of safety in the schools.
That's the end. Sir, if you will pass it down to Ms. Salon.
Thank you.
Okay. So strength. I think when COVID hit, one of the things that was clear from our district was I think most students had a lot of the technology they needed to survive. We just needed to make sure that they had Wi-Fi at home, to which we had a lot of partners in Sprint and T-Mobile to help us make sure our kids had Wi-Fi. And we had 1/3 of elementary school students who did not have a device. That means we're way ahead in technology for our district. And that means we are prepared uniquely for some of the long-term changes in curriculum and just technology and where the future of work is heading. And that's thanks to a lot of the work that our district has done thinking ahead of time, right? Weakness, we have 35% of teachers potentially retiring soon. We have 58% of teachers thinking about retiring or leaving the workforce earlier than they want to, just because morale is so low, and they feel less and less supported every single day because of what's coming down from Tallahassee. So this is a weakness and a threat, so maybe I'll do that. And an opportunity. I think we in Orlando and at OCPS are uniquely positioned compared to other districts around the country to have a lot of partners in education. We are surrounded by private and public partnerships that are really excited to support our students in helping them succeed, whether it's in community college or in alternative education, because they want to have these students fill the gaps and build the skill sets that they need to fill the jobs. For the 6 million unemployed workers around the country, we have 2 opening jobs per person. And the reason why technology is eating up these jobs with automation is not because of all the reasons that we hear on the news all the time. It's because we don't have the skill set in our students to fill those jobs. And so we, as a district, actually have a unique opportunity to make sure our kids are prepared.
All right, well, going last, some people take your thunder, but so strength, I would say, I'm actually going to bring in the opportunity here, which is I believe Orange County Public School students have a lot of opportunities with the diverse offerings we have between, you hear of counties that are not sure how they're going to fund the arts or, that they aren't able to support certain sports teams. Our students have those opportunities. They have amazing electives, things like Project Lead the Way programs with biomedical and engineering. We have over 5 universities and colleges we have dual enrollment agreements with. And I hear the Orange Technical College, we have those technology vocational opportunities already in place for our students. So I see that as a strength and an opportunity. I've already talked about how I believe one of the big weaknesses is the staffing. Maria gave us lots of nice statistics, so I'm going to steal that and say, yes, I absolutely agree. And for the threat right now, I really have to say it's the outsiders putting limitations on us as a district. We have, some people that want to politicize schools right now and are trying to be divisive and put limitations on us and not allow us to do what we do best, which is educate students. So I do see some of that as a very inherent threat. Thank you.
Okay, for the next question, and this one, Ms. Salmonica, you go first.
Okay, ready?
Again, it's a minute and a half. How do you define safe schools, and what are your plans to provide safe schools for all children and employees?
Safe schools is a combination of being both physically and mentally safe. And that goes for both our teachers and our students, right? So for OCPS specifically, between the year 2020 and 2021, There were 1,200 threats of self-harm and suicide in middle school students. There were 40 Baker Acts. There are 1,200 referrals for counseling across the district. And we know that our students are going through intense mental health crises across the country, but also in our district. And what that means as well is that we don't just focus our resources on having more officers in our schools, which do make our students and teachers feel safe in very rare occasions where something really bad goes down, right? It also means that money, when we think about budget on safety, it doesn't just go to that, but it really goes to mental health resources for our students and hiring the therapists, the mental health counselors, and the long-term folks, because we know a lot of these students who potentially could become violent are because they feel unsafe in their environment, whether it's at home or at school, because they're being bullied, because they're not in a good place mentally. And there is proactive measures that we can take on mental health, and then there's reactive measures that we can take on the case when things go wrong. And so that's what I think about when we think about school safety, and ensuring that those officers who are in our schools are there for safety and not for disciplinary action. No parent wants to get a call from their school saying that their kid escalated and got angry and ended up in prison.
Okay. Ms. Ashby?
Yes, I agree that there is actually the two parts. So we do have the actual environmental side of safety. So I'm very supportive of having SROs on every campus, school resource officers, SROs, that partnership with Orange County Sheriff Department. I have worked very closely with these officers, with potential Baker Acts and things like that, and I can tell you they are a wonderful resource. So we need to have security, we need to have SROs. Yes, we don't want our schools to feel like a prison, but we also need to make sure everybody is secure and safe. On the other side of it, obviously my background is mental health counseling. I'm 100% for having those mental health resources in schools. My number one concern as a school counselor is that most school counselors have an average of 500 students, which is 250 students more than the recommended amount by the American Counseling Association. So what that means is they don't have a chance to talk and check in with their students enough. They can be that warning system. They can de-escalate situations, but they have to have time to be with those students. And when, again, they're assigned 500 students or more, especially in an elementary school that may only have one counselor for the entire school, that's not nearly enough to provide that kind of intervention. And so both with those mental health type facilities and making sure we have safe offices in middle and high schools, with staffed with both school psychologists and
My number one priority is the safety of our kids. That's part of my slogan, is putting kids first. And there's been so much discussion almost daily about safety in our schools. So I have been not just researching this locally, but nationwide, what's working, what's not. And certainly communities that recognize that we need to protect our kids by working closely with law enforcement, by making sure that we don't have schools that are not fully safe, that parents absolutely must feel that when they leave off their kids at school, that they feel that they're in safe hands. Also, I've been being involved in technology. From my Air Force days, I got a technical background, which was one career path besides going to college and later teaching. But from my technical background, I learned about, from talking to some of my friends in technology, some great ideas that are absolutely working to enhance the safety of the schools. These are incredible how they work in terms of if they hear a gunshot or they hear any kind of noise, a broken window, it immediately sets off an alarm. It contacts police. It shuts the classroom door. It's unfortunate that we're in this time period, but we absolutely must have safe schools. And also, we must always be vigilant.
We now move to the lightning round. They only get 1 minute for each of the following questions, so I caution you. And we'll start with Ms. Ashby on this one. 1 minute. What will you do to improve educator retention and morale? And what are your ideas to attract new educators to fill the vacancies at OCPS?
Okay, first, we've got to give them a pay raise. We have to make it affordable to work and live in the same district. That's number one. Number two is we need to respect teachers that they are the experts in their field. There's a lot of micromanaging that goes on. And sometimes, especially teachers who teach subjects that are, they have the standardized test attached. So in high school, we call that like the Super 6. Your English, your math, your science, your US history. Many of them are leaving just because of that micromanaging. So we need to allow them to have that creative environment in their classroom to teach their students. We need to attract new people, and that's going to be hard. And I know the state is looking at various types of certification routes, but I do think we need to be careful of exactly which way we go. I know there was a thing about allowing veterans to kind of skip some of the steps, and we can talk about that later.
Yes, one of the key plans I have is to, when I was walking through the community, there was a retired teacher that said, what can I do? I have a medical disability and I can't work. We need to bring some of these retired teachers back to the classroom to help some of these students who, during COVID, were at home alone, and they needed someone to counsel them, to look after them, to help them. Also, my connections with our state representatives to get the funding we need for teachers. We must be able to compete with other counties, with other states. We must reward our teachers for their extra work in terms of how they're perceived by the students or some of their accomplishments academically. And one of the things we also must do to help our teachers is we must plan ahead with our schools. Timber Creek High School is overcrowded. We've got to stop that. We've got to plan.
So we know that the programs that prepare teachers to be teachers, enrollment has dropped about 1/3. So we have a pipeline problem to begin with. We know that morale is as low as it can get in our teachers today, and many of them will be leaving the classroom. So there's a couple of things that we can do. Long term, we have to make sure that the salaries that we increase now, and we should continue to increase due to inflation, we have the budget for that, right? So that is a math problem, and we need to make sure that we have folks on the board that understand that that is a math problem. The second thing is we need to review the drop program. Many of these teachers are in drop, and there is a chance that we could review and see how many of them want to stay longer for the ones that do, and focus in the areas of very high need. Areas where we know we have a shortage of a teacher specifically. The second thing is we could reconsider entrance exams, right? Many teachers don't become teachers because they're a fantastic English teacher, but they have to pass the math general exam and they decide they're not going to do it, they're just going to become a substitute teacher. Let's reevaluate what it takes for those exams. And lastly, we have to look at partnerships like Teach for America or like student programs.
I apologize, I got sidetracked for a minute. This next question, Mr. Collins will answer first. How would you improve academic achievement at the district's low-performing schools? Or how would you ensure that the resources are distributed equitably across the schools?
Who's this one first?
Question again is?
Turned it off too fast. How would you improve academic achievement at the district's low-performing schools? Or how would you assure that the resources are distributed equitably across the schools?
Very good. The academic quality of the schools is so important. We need to make sure that all our schools bring up the ratings in all our schools. And one of the key ways that we do that is to work with bringing in the best teachers. And I have often talked with other teachers who said, you know, I got to bring in my own supplies. I can't live on this salary. And if we want to have great teachers and have great schools, we have to pay them properly. They are telling me that they don't have the right health insurance that will take care of them. They have been amazing this past couple of years through COVID and what they have gone through. And if we plan to keep them and make all our schools great, we must keep our great teachers. And I want to get behind our teachers and making sure that they have all the resources they need, and this will help academically all our students.
Well, if we look at this district alone, Colonial and Lake Nona could not be further apart from each other in the demographics, the money, the teachers, the stability of that. And so it begins with really understanding what's going on the ground. As I mentioned, there were many times when I just starved for years in a row because this free and reduced lunch form was only in English and I didn't want to bother my parents. So one of the key things is we have to make sure that communication and outreach to low-income communities is there in their languages. Our school district has a lot of resources, not just for EL kids, but for IEPs. But what happens, many parents who don't speak English show up to their IEPs and they don't have a Spanish speaker or second language speaker representative in the room. And it's not meant to be, it's not because we don't have the resources, it's just because we're not doing the outreach. I speak Spanish. I will be a representative that can speak both Spanish and English. I went to a good school. I am the representation of a student that can go from the bottom to a good school.
That's the end. On this next question, right? Oh,
Sorry. You're right. All right, so.
First, I think we need to look at why are they underperforming. And I go back to my basic psychology of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're hungry, your stomach's growling, you're not thinking about what is happening in math class, you're thinking about when do I get to eat. Orange County's done a great job. We have free breakfast, we have free lunch, and we even have the free third meal these days. So after school, any student's able to walk up and get a before sports meal or to take home. They have ready to go meals. So we need to make sure that students are fed. They need to feel safe, obviously, but then they need extra tutoring. So with these schools, we can provide extra after school tutoring, but we need to have that activity bus that then takes them home because they may not have transportation, they may not have parents that can come pick them up. So we need to look at what are those obstacles that are standing in the way from those students succeeding like students at other schools, and then try to provide those supports so that we are evening the playing field and that those students can be successful.
okay, Ms. Salmon, I guess this one first, right? Do you support the millage referendum on the August ballot this year? Why or why not?
Yes, I do. It is necessary funds to continue closing the gap that we have in our budget. Even when adjusted for inflation, we are still short, even with the federal funds in the millage, about $700 per student. That means that we, at our schools per student, have a lot less money today than we did in 07 and 08 at the worst part of the recession. So we need the money. There's also parts of the funding that goes to keep our kids safer, such as sidewalks, such as basic parts of infrastructure building that are very much necessary, but it is part of the budget that our school district has become reliant on, and we must extend it because similar to the federal funds, there will be a fiscal budget problem if we don't keep those funds with us. And it's very likely that we will have to ask for voters on term to actually increase this if we do have that gap in the coming years.
Yeah, that's pretty easy, obviously, yes. Definitely support it for all of those reasons. It's absolutely something that money has been within our budget since it's existed, and we're spending that money. We need more money. So the idea that if it doesn't pass, and I really do feel like it's going to pass, I don't know, maybe that's just my wishful thinking, we would have deficits that we would have to then adjust to make up for that money. So 100% believe that voters should definitely vote yes when it comes to the millage. You've already been paying it. It's not an increase in anything within your budget. You won't notice it. Definitely support it. No question.
It's a tough economy out there right now, and so many families are struggling. It's possible that they won't pass it. So my plan is to continue to work with the business community. We need to work collaboratively. There are so many, as I said earlier, so many great jobs out there for students that are not pursuing a college career, and we need to get back to some of the skilled trades and so forth so we can fill these high-paying jobs. This is my plan for all our students to have a clear pathway to better jobs. And by doing that, that is the best way to help our schools.
Okay, Miss Ashby gets this one first, right? I think I'm right. Yeah. You did, and then you did, and then he did, right? So you get this one first.
Okay, you're right.
It's a good thing from time to time.
That's why you're true.
Please define social emotional learning and explain why you are for or against it in schools.
Oh, you're killing me. Social emotional learning, also known as SEL. Do I support it, did you ask? Was that part of your question? Yes? Yes, I do. Social emotional learning is really the idea that we're educating the whole child. So, besides just English, math, science, social studies, we're looking at emotional intelligence. We're looking at how at a young age do you identify emotions? How do you see them in yourself and react? How do you recognize those in others? And knowing that, you think, why do they need to identify emotions? Because that helps us relate to situations so that maybe we understand that somebody doesn't need to be aggressive and that doesn't escalate. So we have to teach students from early ages, and by the way, by law, we have to give them, I believe, 6 hours of SEL a year. We currently have that type of education built in. Do I think we could do a better job in Orange County with what we're currently doing in SEL education? Yes, I do, but I 100% support it and developing more social emotional understanding for students.
I certainly am supportive of social emotional learning for our students. This has been a tough couple of years, and we need to monitor more what's happening with our students when they've been away from the classroom, and how we monitor, how they are at home, and that's something that we need to study. We need to research the last couple of years, because unfortunately, they tell us that we could face something like that again with COVID. So they have been affected emotionally, certainly. They're alone, often, a single parent, and it's been tough for them. And of course, that has affected their learning. So the first thing I want to do is to look at the research and continue researching how we best handle the social, emotional, and learning skills of our students when they are left at home alone. And that we also look into how, once again, as I said, how we can bring about retired teachers to help
Enough.
them.
Stop.
So at the history of social emotional learning, it came about, which was the question, why are some kids doing good in school and some kids not doing good when you have the same teacher, maybe the same school? And the reason was because the home is very different always, right? The skills, the non-academic skills that you have at home, aka your social emotional learning skills, are different, and every kid comes in with that different. What does this mean? Your ability to plan, your behavioral regulation, your likeliness to cooperate, your ability to consider consequences, your adaptability. Those are things that we learned through the education system, needed the support of teachers and curriculum to develop students so that they could be developed at the same pace with each other, even if there was a gap at home. The second thing is 21st century working skills. Being able to cooperate, being able to disagree with people, being able to learn from your mistakes, being able to communicate in a way that is non-aggressive and emotionally regulate. That's what we need in the jobs of the future. And that is why business leaders across the country care deeply about having this in our school.
Thank you. Mr. Collins, you get this one first. How will you work to support LGBTQ plus students in light of House Bill 1557?
I believe that all our kids, no matter who they are, what their background, we must learn to always respect all our students. It's so critical. And one of the things that I have learned is that our kids learn when they don't feel any fear. And they must not feel fearful that they will be rejected because of who they are. They are all God's children. We must respect them. We must work with them. Teachers must be aware of any fearful situation that the student feels. They can come to the teacher or they can come to counseling. We must always be open to that, and it will improve our schools, it will improve our academics, but most of all, we want our kids to feel that they are safe.
Okay, this might come back and haunt me on Facebook, but we'll see. I identify as LGBTQ, and I am proud to say that, and I was not so proud when I was a K-12 student. I come from an immigrant Latino family, very, very Catholic, which meant that home was not the safe place for me to ever learn about myself and my identity or feel welcomed. And my parents have come around now, but it was not very easy for a very young kid trying to understand what was going on. My teachers did not convince me to be gay, and they also never asked those questions. But what they did do was they made sure that their classroom was a safe place for me. That if any other kid ever found out about me, they couldn't pick on me. That even though they weren't actively asking me about it or being involved in my day-to-day, that I was still able to defend myself or tell someone if I was not feeling safe. That is the board of our school district, is to make sure that we push back as much as we can. We know that there's only so much we can control on the laws of what happens, but we have to talk to legal counsel and make sure that we are generous with how we implement this.
I absolutely agree. I actually had a conversation with one of my seniors today when we were doing our Pack Is Back, and he asked me where the policies were in the county right now, what was coming down, how are we going to be implementing this in the school. He asked me, am I still allowed to use my pronouns? Can I use my preferred name? And I told my student that yes, right now, we've been given guidance that says, yes, at the high school, we're going to respect whatever your preferred pronouns are, you can use your preferred name. But then I read an Orlando Sentinel article this afternoon that says the state's already pushing back against us. We have vague language in a law, and unfortunately our school board is going to have to follow the law. But I absolutely, as a board member, will push back as far as we possibly can to make sure that we are protecting an extremely vulnerable population of our students and supporting our families.
Mr. Collins gets, nope, excuse me. Ms. Salmonica gets this one first. What is your understanding of the recent focus on parents' rights in education? If two groups of parents are opposed on an issue, how should the district determine whose rights are to be observed?
I like to think of parents' rights from the perspective of an individual parent, right? You want to have control over how your kid is taught and educated. And you have a lot of that control in the home, as well as you have a relationship with the teachers if you can. However, I would argue most parents do not want other parents parenting their kids. So what does that mean? That means that just because you want to parent your kid in one way, You do not agree with how others do. Just because you want your kids reading something doesn't mean you don't let other kids read something. So what does that mean when we look at policy? When we think about, for example, books. Books should be accessible if they want to be read by students, right? That doesn't mean that we decide that we all of a sudden don't believe in science, so we want no kid to be parented or learn science. You get to decide if you teach your kid to believe or not believe in science, but you do not get to tell the district that no other kid is going to learn that. That is parental rights. You have the right with your kids.
When it comes to parental rights, I think we all believe that one of the things we keep hearing is about transparency. But what are we not being transparent about? In classrooms, the standards are publicized. Teachers give syllabus at high levels. You know exactly what is being covered. You can preview the textbooks. It's all really already there. When we talk about book banning, we have already books that have been ordered and previewed within the school. They've met certain criteria to be in our media centers. If somebody as a parent wants their child not to read something, or not participate in CEL or character education, they can choose to opt out or say, my child won't read that book. And if it's something assigned by a class, the teacher will provide them another option to read in place of that literature. But that doesn't mean that that one parent gets to block the education of the other students, that parents are fine with them learning from that facility.
I believe in parents' rights, that they have the right to talk to the school board, to talk to the teacher, to express their opinions, to express their concerns, to ask about the books that they're reading. You know, I really enjoyed the first few years as I look way back in school, the innocence that I got to enjoy. I didn't have to hear about these controversial topics. And I believe that our kids in the first few years of school, they don't need to hear about that. Isn't really opening them up to ideas that they need to hear at an early age. And I believe that parents have a concern about that. They should. Parents have the right to ask about everything that their students are concerned about or complain about. And that's part of the school board. That's part of the school board to see that everything is done to allow students to feel safe, to feel that they have the ability to talk to their parents and get a reply from their teachers.
Okay, this is going to be our last 1 minute question, and then we will go to your closing statements. Okay, so we'll start this one with Ms. Ashby. If a parent approached you with a special education concern and stated that he or she felt that this was a systemic concern, what would you do?
Well, first I would ask what the systemic concern was. I feel like I need a lot more information. As a counselor, I am part of IEP meetings. I am part of 504 meetings. I talk about the services that we are able to provide students that are part of special education, and the services that we offer students under an IEP, an individual education plan. We talk about accommodations that the schools can provide for students that fall under Section 504 plans. So really, I would want to know more information. As a board member, if somebody came to me with any kind of concern, I would ask questions. I would need to know what are they asking the school to do? Where do they believe that we are not fulfilling those needs? And we would have to look at it from that point of view. But as far as, if we're talking about the student trying to get services, I would look at where are they in the process of the student being evaluated, how long has it been since they asked for it?
Yes, I believe that one of the key things that we need to do is that we need to open up the conversations with our students immediately. I think teachers need to be aware of, and we need to provide the kind of education to our teachers so that they can be aware of how they can best help the students in their needs. Students often don't know how communicate that. And so I think, once again, this involves the parents getting involved, and also having our, as I said, having our teachers be aware and when the students approach them with these concerns. This is so important. It's part of our academic process that our students feel happy and that they feel that their needs are being fulfilled.
Yeah, I think it's hard without context, the question, but I think when a parent comes to you with a concern, there's a couple of things I think at the school board level you can do. One, you make sure they know who are the people in the district who have the answers for this. So whether that's specific resources, specific people in their school. Two, hopefully you understand if they are able to have those resources in the language that they need. And three, I would want to understand what they're feeling, the way they're feeling. Like, why is it systematic? Is it something that they have seen multiple times? Do they have other parents that have experienced the same thing? Do they have other students that have experienced this? Is this something that we need to talk to the school about? Is it something that we need to talk to the whole district about? So I think, curiosity is probably a superpower for a school board member, to not assume that you know everything and figure out where in the district, we have a massive district. People have solved a lot of problems. It's about figuring out where the resources are and redirecting folks, and I feel like that's more than half of the job.
Going to move to the closing statements, and Ms. Salamanca, you're first. 2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right. I hope I spoke to the various issues that we talked today to show you that yes, I am young, but I am prepared. I am young, but I am not inexperienced. I have a full-time job in finance industry. I went to a top school. I have built national organizations that have raised millions of dollars beyond the school level. The scale of change that I have impacted, you can look me up, you can Google me, is at the national level. I am running for school board because I'm worried about what is happening, because I am sad to see teachers that made a massive difference in my success leave the classroom, and because I'm worried about kids that look like me not having those same opportunities that come after me. When the state gives us a grade, we are an A or a B district. It does not come down to one school. Yes, each school gets their own grade, but for us to UPS be an A district, it means all of us have to rise together. And that means at the school level, at the school board level, we have to not just focus that the bottom continues to rise, and that is very important, but that the top also continues to rise. I am a student that has worked endlessly with our school district for the super scholars, the students who want to go to the Harvards, who want to be better for our society and want to come back to our city to build it and make better. We are today in Orlando at a place where minimum wage would need to work 117 hours a week or 3 full-time jobs to afford a 2-bedroom rental. The most important thing for us as a district is to make sure that we have the resources for our students to be prepared for the economy that is looking at them after they graduate. I know there's a lot of things on the news telling you that we need to be focused on what they're reading, what they're not reading. They're Mercy learning a ton of stuff on YouTube. It's not coming from books all the time. We need to focus on what matters. We have to support teachers for them to teach. We have to support students for them to learn. And we might to make sure that a district, whether you're in Colonial or in Lake Nona, you are successful no matter your language or socioeconomic background.
Mr. Collins, you're next.
Yes, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate setting this up. I'm really thrilled about the possibility of serving on the school board, and I look forward to working with the strategic plan that the OCPS has in place for the next 5 years. It's a plan that involves a great mission and a vision step that I plan to follow. We look forward to having a collaborative effort in order to enhance the career path for many of our students that aren't interested in going to college. But there's often some jobs out there that unfortunately they don't have the skill for, that pay quite well. So I want to get behind seeing how we can better work with the home builders, with the hotel industry, with providing them with the skill level to get into workforce right away where they can climb and succeed. We need to encourage also our students who consider college. There's a great program. Right here we have Valencia College right next to Lake Nona. And what a great opportunity this is for them to also get college credit at Valencia while they're at Lake Nona or at another high school. And they can graduate, like one of our family members did, with 2 years behind them already as they start UCF. What a great program that is. I want to get behind that and support that. And my bottom line of why I'm getting into the school board is I want our students to reach their dreams, no matter who they are, wherever they are in Orange, in our district, that they have the same opportunity, that they are counseled well to fulfill their dreams, and I want them to get to the point where they feel, I'm on the right path, and I'm getting all the help I need.
Ms. Ashby, you're next.
So my vision for Orange County is that we are a large, inclusive county. And I'm not saying that we are not already there, but there's always improvement. Again, as I stated at the beginning, I've been in education for over 25 years. I've been in the classroom, I've been in the counseling offices, I have literally held parents' hands while they cried, or students. I have, overseen and supported families when we've lost a student. I've had a lot of experiences, and it's with those experiences that I feel like I can bring various viewpoints to the board. As a job, I work with people and we collaborate daily. I am a person who asks questions and I actively seek answers. So what does that mean for you as a parent? That if you come to me with a question, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to try to figure out what can we do to better this situation and how can we work past this. I understand that the school system can be very scary, especially for people who didn't attend school in this country originally. Many of my parents were educated in other countries, and they come and say, I don't understand how to navigate this. I just have questions. And that's something that we need to make sure that we're doing everywhere, is giving parents that support to ask those questions in a safe environment so that they understand our system better and they're better able to help support their children as they navigate through this. So something that we can do as Orange County, and something that I really want to work towards, is really making schools become part of the community. I was talking with people that grew up in New York recently, and they talked about how schools were the center of their community. Everybody's family went there, they had community festivals at the schools, and it was a meeting place. And I think we've kind of gotten away from schools being that coming together place, and I want to bring that back.
Thank you all very much. I'd like to encourage all of you to give a warm, rousing round of applause to our candidates. But I'd also like to ask you, please, to thank the Orange County PTA for setting up these forums to help educate all of you on the vote. Please go vote for August 23. Thank you very much, and thanks for coming tonight. Woo.